Hello, I'm Richard Crisanti, your executive chef, and we're back again with our 5th cooking demo. And today's demo is going to be about some side dishes and a dessert that could go with Easter. So let's start out with going through the recipes. We're going to be making a classic potatoes gratin. We're going to work on some roasted cauliflower, and then the famous hot cross buns, which Thomas Radcliffe was the first person that is noted to hand them out to the poor in the UK. And he was a famous monk, and I wanted to share that because traditionally in the UK it was a dish that was made on Good Friday and through Easter weekend, and so we're going to make that as well. So our first recipe we're going to start out with today is our classic potatoes gratin. And we're going to start out with a burner, and we're going to take a pot and we're going to put some heavy cream in there. We're going to put some garlic cloves, some shallots. I like to add some salt and pepper to taste. I'm going to add some fresh thyme. And the fresh thyme has been picked off and chopped. This adds a lot of nice flavor to our potatoes. And then we're going to bring this liquid to a boil, and then we're going to puree it with a burr mixer right here. And it's kind of like a portable blender. If you don't have a burr mixer at home, some people have smaller ones. If you don't have a burr mixer at home, you can put this mixture after it's cooked all the way into a blender and puree it all up, and then we're going to add cheese to it as well. Now our liquid has been simmering for a little while, and we're going to actually shut it off. And just be very, very careful when you're pureeing it. And we're going to puree the mixture to get the shallots and the garlic pureed into the cream. Now we're finished pureeing it. Our mixture is nice and smooth. And then we're going to mix in a little bit of Parmesan cheese. And not all of it. Half of it is going to be saved and reserved for the assembly of potatoes. And then the Gruyere cheese goes in, and then we're going to mix that in and have that cheese blend together and melt a little bit. And then we're going to do the assembly of our potatoes. Today, we're going to be using individual cast iron pots, but if you look in the recipe, I call for a Pyrex. So you can do it in a Pyrex dish, you can do it in individual casserole dishes. It's entirely up to you. Today, I wanted to do it in individual and show you how we do the assembly of that. So as that cheese slowly melts in, I'm going to start out with our potatoes and show you the assembly. Now our cheese mixture is all melted and combined together and has a nice texture to it. We're going to move it down here. I have a spoon. And we're going to take our potatoes that we've sliced super thin. And we're going to add them into our casserole. They go around in a nice circular form. And then every time I go around and I do a layer, I'm going to add a little bit of our sauce. A tablespoon. And each layer will do that. And then we'll add more potato. Then we're going to keep repeating this until we get the layers all the way up to the top. And then we top it with a little bit more Parmesan cheese and Gruyere cheese. Now we've gotten to the end and we've layered it with the sauce all the way to the top. Then we're going to finish the top off with a little bit of Parmesan cheese, a little bit of our Gruyere cheese, And then because we want to cook it slow and not have it too brown, we're going to actually either use aluminum foil or we have these nice cast iron lids. So we're going to put the lids on and we're going to bake it in the oven, and then when it comes out, we'll bring it back to you. And now our potato gratin is done, and it's just coming out of the oven, sizzling away, golden brown. And if you want it even more brown than that, you can cook it for an extra 5 to 10 minutes with the lid off or the foil off to make it brown. And then we like to let it set. So we'll usually take it out of the oven, let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes, and then all the flavors and the sauce and everything kind of settle in, and the starches from the potatoes will absorb some of that liquid. And now we're on to our next recipe, which is our hot cross buns. Very easy recipe, but time consuming. We're going to start with our milk, and we're going to pour it into our KitchenAid mixing bowl. It's just warm milk. We warmed it up in a microwave. Then we're going to put sugar, and then our dry active yeast. The yeast will activate in a moist environment with sugar. So that's why we add some of our granulated sugar in the beginning. We mix it up, and then we're going to cover it up for 5 minutes, and then we'll move on to the next step of the recipe. Okay, now after 5 minutes, our yeast has begun its fermentation and started getting active, and now we're going to put the mixing bowl on our mixer, and we're going to start adding ingredients. So we're going to add our salt, all of our spices, cinnamon, allspice, nutmeg, brown sugar, our soft butter, and then we're going to add 1 cup of our flour. And then the remainder we will add in afterwards, as I show you. And we're going to lift our mixing bowl into place and put it on low. And slowly combine that portion of the recipe. We're going to want to mix this for about 2 or 3 minutes. So now you want to take a rubber spatula and you want to make sure that you clear all the sides away, because the flour and the butter will go up on the sides. And it's not completely mixed together, it's really separated, but we'll do this a couple times to make sure we get all the ingredients mixed in together. There's nothing worse than using a mixing bowl and then having product at the bottom that hasn't been mixed in. Now we're going to add our eggs and mix those in nice and slow. And the next step will be to add the raisins and the remainder of our flour. And if you don't have a dough hook at home and you have a paddle, you can use a paddle as well. I like to use the dough hook because it just gets a better circulation and it doesn't get stuck in the whole whip. Okay, now we're going to slowly add in our raisins. You can re-soak the raisins if you'd like. Some people like to soak them in orange juice. Some people like to soak them in rum, like a dark rum is really good. I'm just giving you the basic recipe today, but absolutely you can soak them to reconstitute them, and then make sure you drain the liquid off whatever you decide to soften them and reconstitute. And then we're just going to add flour little by little. A little bit at a time. Let the dough hook do its job. And you'll start to see the dough come together, and it'll start to dry a little bit as the flour gets mixed in, and it'll pull away from the sides. Then I add the remainder of the flour in. And then we'll continue to mix it until it comes into a nice solid dough ball. It's one of those situations where you have to be patient, but it will come away from the bowl and form into a nice dough ball. And by using a KitchenAid, you don't need to knead your dough because it's actually being worked by the dough hook. So we're going to be able to take it out of the mixing bowl, put it into a pan sprayed bowl, and let it rise. set right there. Now that our mixture is done, we're gonna pan spray either stainless steel or Pyrex. Any type of bowl is fine. We'll take our dough hook off, and then we're gonna take our mixture, and we're gonna clean our dough hook. And it feels like almost like a cookie dough consistency. See it right there? And then we're gonna shape it into a ball, like so. Then we're gonna put it in this bowl, cover it up, and then it usually takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours at room temperature to rise up, and we wanna almost double it in size. So we'll come back to it in a few. And we're back, and our dough has risen. It takes about 2 hours. And now we're gonna work on cutting it up into our individual balls. I flatten it out a little bit, get some of that air out of it. I usually flip it over just so I get a little bit of flour on it. That way it's easier to work with. But you can see the dough and the texture is beautiful. And then I cut it. Usually into about 4 strips. Then we're going to cut it into like a 3-ounce or a 4-ounce roll. And then some pieces, if they get a little small, you can cut off and branch it off like that. And this recipe yields anywhere from 14 to 16 rolls. I actually take my glove off for this, and we're gonna we tuck it underneath, and then we put it on a board and we roll it. We roll it into a nice ball. And then we're gonna take it, we're gonna put it on a pan sprayed sheet pan or a sill pad. If you have a sill pad, those are great. And then we're gonna place our rolls. If you don't have a large sheet pan, it's okay. You can actually bake them right next to each other. It's okay to put them right next to each other or space them out, okay? So as you notice, I'm folding it under and then I'm rolling it into a ball. No flour here, because you kind of want it to catch the cutting board when you're rolling. My recipe today, you will see it's a little bit different than the recipe that calls for they make an X in it, and they usually do a flour and water slurry, and that makes the cross in the bun. I like to do it more on the sweeter side, so when they come out of the oven, we're going to actually, inside the X, put icing in there instead. So, pretty neat. Now we have all the rolls done on the sheet pan, and then the part of the X. We're gonna cut just a little incision straight across, and we go back the other way. And this makes a little indentation when it proofs, and that way we'll have a little channel that we're gonna put our icing into. And then we're gonna cover it up with a towel, proof it for another hour until they double in size, and then we'll bake them in the oven at 350 degrees for 15 to 20 minutes. And then when they come out of the oven, we'll bring them right back and show you how we finish them off. And now we're back. Our hot cross buns are golden brown. They just came out of the oven and we let them cool for about 5 minutes. And then we're gonna take our apricot glaze with orange zest, and we're gonna glaze over our hot cross buns. It adds a really nice flavor to it. Certain people's recipes are made with an orange icing. Some are just apricot themselves and vanilla. I like to add the orange zest into the apricot glaze. It adds a lot of great flavor. And the orange zest is a great combination with the allspice and nutmeg. finished. Now you have fresh hot cross buns. And now we're moving on to our final recipe, which is roasted cauliflower. We've already done it ahead of time where the cauliflower is in florets, but there are many recipes where you can actually take it and cut it into like a cauliflower steak. So I wanted to demo that for you just to show you. So if you didn't want to do it in florets, you could do it in a steak form. So if you go like this very gently and you cut it, you can cut it into a steak form just like this and roast it off that way. It's a great presentation. We've done it for vegetarian dishes where you have a nice cauliflower steak on a plate with sauteed vegetables. Some of the outer parts will fall apart, but you can usually get 2 or 3 steaks out of the center, and then the rest you can break up or cut up into your florets for roasting. Okay. And this is a really easy recipe, much better than sauteing on a health side. We're using olive oil, but you don't have to use olive oil. You could use a canola oil, really. You could roast it with very little oil if you would like to keep it on the healthier side. So we're gonna take a mixing bowl. We're gonna take some of our florets, put them in a mixing bowl. Like so. That's about 1 head's worth. And I just wanted to demo the other head so you can kind of see how you can cut it differently, like that. And then we're going to take some olive oil. Mix it in. And you don't have to use as much as the recipe. You can use less if you like. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to take some whole garlic cloves that have been peeled, add those in. And then we're going to take some onions, sprinkle those in with the cauliflower. And the great thing is we're mixing it in one bowl, so you have one bowl to clean and one sheet pan to clean afterwards. You don't have saute pans and everything all over the kitchen that you have to clean. Salt and pepper. And if you don't like garlic, you don't have to put it. If you don't have fresh garlic, you can always use granulated. And then we're going to put some fresh thyme in. Now it says thyme sprigs, but I like to actually take it and pull it off of the stem and sprinkle it in, like so. If you're not a big fan of thyme, you can always use oregano. You could use parsley. It's up to you. If you just wanted to get a little bit of an essence, you can always just put whole sprigs in and then remove them at the end. I love thyme. And so I like to actually keep it in there, roast it with it, and enjoy those flavors when I'm eating it. And if you want it super fine, you can chop it up with a knife. It's entirely up to you. And then we're going to take our cauliflower, we're going to toss it. It doesn't have to be just white cauliflower. There's purple, there's tricolor, there's orange. You can do whatever cauliflower you would like. And then we put it onto a pan sprayed sheet pan. And then we're gonna roast it off at a very high heat, 425 to 450 degrees for about 10 minutes. And then we'll bring it out and show you at the end. And now we're back after roasting our cauliflower. We have our cauliflower steaks and our cauliflower florets, and then we finish them off with some grated Parmesan cheese, and you can finish them off with some fresh chopped parsley as well. And that concludes our cooking class for today. I hope you enjoyed everything, and I want to wish everyone a happy holiday. Thanks so much.